Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight, I have my two very special guests. I have Professor Pixel and RDV. Tonight, we are covering Charlton Heston's debut film performance, Dark City from 1950, a movie in which, gentlemen, I think it's very obvious, and we'll go around here for our initial impressions. Charlton Heston really pops on the screen immediately, not just with his voice, but the way he carries himself. I think the film's probably okay to watch. Definitely, if you're a fan of the period and you like that type of film noir type of detective-ish almost feeling, this is kind of like it. It doesn't fully commit, in my opinion, to that, but I think it's a great way to go. This is what Charleston Heston started off at, and what he would become, and what we would become to know is all the awesomeness of Charlton Heston. This dude's a great actor. He's got a great presence. He has charisma. He has that it factor. Overall, like I say, Charlton Heston is one of my personal favorites of all time. I geek out of talking about him. We have only done a few films here on the Xtreme Movie Show with him. We have plenty more to do here. But let me start with the young 20-something millennial something who may or may not even know who the hell we're talking about. And that's the guy that was on everybody's television twice a year, Christmas and Easter, and Charlton Heston. I'm going to go to you, Art, to Professor Pixel. What's your initial take on Dark City?
Um, Actually, I think I enjoyed it a little more than, especially some. This movie isn't rated all that well. To everyone who, all the ratings that I saw whenever I was looking it up, nobody really cared. You couldn't really find it. I enjoyed the story for what it was, and it has that classic feeling like, okay, well, you have some dark moments here, not to be punny or anything, but you have dark moments, but in the end you can be sure that things are going to turn out okay for the characters we're following. I definitely I could enjoy it. I actually saw this right after I saw the remake of Nightmare Alley. So it was nice to see, to dig back into this kind of film noir, dig into the old style, and then to just leave it at that.
Okay. What about you, RDV? I know you're a big Heston fan like myself. What's your take on this film?
Like I said, it was weird seeing Heston not looking like Heston until he started doing his certain mannerisms, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it is him. And even back then, he was still a tall dude. No matter what movie set he's on, he's always like the tallest guy. I've noticed that. Trying to find somebody who can match his height.
Yep.
I love the setting in this. Like I said, it's 1950. You know, you're just getting out of the 1940s. You're just going, starting a new decade, and people still dress the same. The suits and stuff. You know, the casino. It's just you got the lounge singer and all that stuff. It's a cool vibe you get from this. And my only problem with this is that the main lady here, Lizabeth Scott, didn't really seem like your typical main lady, you know.
Definitely not. Definitely not what I would call the femme fatale that we're used to if we're getting really hardcore. I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, because I mean, she had the accent. She and she's supposed to be playing Fran Garland. I'm not sure what nationality she's supposed to be in this movie or not. But she was actually, she was decent, but she was kind of like, she's playing kind of like the naive kind of woman, where typically she has that look where she'd more be like the Lauren Bacall and would be the clever, kind of sassy woman, and she wasn't playing that role, so that kind of threw me off. But I liked seeing Harry Morgan in here playing the soldier.
Yes.
And then you had Jack Webb in here too.
Yes.
Well. So whenever you see them, it's like Jack Webb is just kind of quiet. He's not really, especially when him and Heston get called into the basically the police department, because they want to know about the guy. He basically questioning him, where they were and stuff. And I love how Heston's like, well, we have names here. And it's like they're like, he's kind of. Heston knows a little bit more than what he's putting on, and the captain knows that. But then I love how they play off each other. And then you have Don DeFore as Arthur in here, Arthur Winant, and it's a fun movie. Is it a rewatchable movie? you could I'd say probably you could probably forget it within like a couple years and then go watch it again.
Mhm.
Just the fact that it's slow paced for me. It's not a typical movie I'd watch, but I mean the reason we did check it out because it was Heston and it was considered to be noir. It like I said, it's a murder mystery from what I've gathered from watching it, and like I said, it's casino. It's just I said it's a non typical Heston movie. Heston movies I think of like I always come like so I Planet of the Apes, or you have what's the other two Earthquake, Tower Infernal. That's what I think of when I Heston from now right now. Or I don't think of him being like in a noir like like a old 50s movie. So
Yeah,
it was neat.
definitely did a lot.
It was neat to see him in a role that's typically not his role. And I just it was good.
Yeah, I think with Heston, for me, watching him growing up, I mentioned before here one time when you and I were covering a film, RDV, is that here in Central Florida in the mid '90s, Heston was on a book speaking tour for his bibliography that came out, or his biography that came out, and he looked like an older guy at the time. He was, I think, in the 70s, and he was giving a talk about things in his biography and just stories and answered questions from the audience. And I was fortunate I had a hookup at the university that I was at the time that allowed me to go get a very good near front row ticket to see him. So I jumped on it. And I thought, wow, he's just collecting a nice, easy paycheck. So I kind of had that jaded, he's just a star sort of thing. Because I typically don't get starstruck like a lot of people do, especially here in Central Florida. There's a lot of them. But Heston would be one guy I'd get weak kneed over. He just was always larger than life to me. But then when somebody said something about, well, can you do something in your voice? And he just kind of looked and he started talking. He turned it on and just started reciting a passage from some old movie. And I'm like, holy crap, that's what talent is. Jesus Christ, this is phenomenal. It was great. It's just amazing how well, somebody, when they deliver something in front of you, that you go, okay, that's all I needed, just to be reminded how good acting can be. And I think that's what stands out about Heston here in this film. From the get-go, we see him walking. He's tall. He's got great shoulders. He's boyishly handsome. He's also kind of not a good guy. Him and his group run like this illegal ring, and they kind of get this guy that I thought did a very good job. He was their mark, who was buying some sports equipment, and they saw that he had a real big check. They let him win. Then they brought him back the next day. Then they basically laundered it up with liquor, and then they cheated basically through it. Heston's conflicted a little bit about it, but he's not a wuss ass about it. And it actually is kind of interesting because supposedly he commits suicide, and we're trying to figure out what's going on because they've got the guy's check for $5,000 signed over to him, but they can't cash it because they'll let the police know that they might have had something nefarious involved in it, and we're not sure how this plays out. So it's not even really what happens at the end that I think makes the movie. It's the fact that like him, and this is pre-Dragnet, you've got Jack Webb in there going at it with everybody. You see everybody kind of sniping at each other too, and he has to handle his girlfriend. It's interesting to see him dodge and weave his way through things and try to figure out how the hell do I get myself out of this situation? What do I want out of it? And in that regard, I think Charlton does a very good job of convincing you that he's really in the moment trying to figure things out, whereas everybody else is sort of like relying on things to happen before things will play out for it too. At least that's how I took it. But yeah, I thought he popped off screen. It's certainly not his best performance, but I thought it was very, very solid, and it was certainly very memorable. It's one of those films that you go, oh, that's the movie that such and such starred in, and this is definitely the vibe that you get from him. So I agree with you, RDV. It wasn't so much a classic noir, especially with her. Her overdub voice really was kind of very obvious. So I don't know. It just looked like a pretty decent film shot on a backlot somewhere is what it looked like to me early on. But
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought there were some good scenes too. What were you going to say, Professor Pixel?
Well, I don't think it's a movie to go ape over. It's not going to be splitting
Stop.
the tea, but it can eat at you.
Stop.
He says with bright eyes.
No.
Listen. I had to try to fit all those in somewhere.
But here's the thing with Heston. Him and William Shatner, I've mentioned before, kind of get a similar treatment. They're both considered overactors, campy, hammy, whatever you want to call it. They're both Shakespearean trained. This is not the first time that Heston's been doing any sort of acting. He did a lot of stage plays, and you had to do all of that stuff first before you really got a chance to break it in. And Heston was probably one of the last, what we would call studio stars, that when you would get signed up, they would actually, give you a salary, and they'd loan you out to different people, and they'd give you the finishing school and accent lessons if you needed it, whatever it was the case. And that's one of the things about Heston that I remember is that, of course, we love Bogart. We think he's great. Heston is one of those last few of the just major movie stars of yesteryear, as it were. But to y'all's point, and I can't argue, a lot of people go, oh, he was in that 8 movie, or he was in that goofy vampire movie, or this or that. But that was just, I guess, easy action, money grabs, if you want to call it that. That's what was popular there. But again, this is also over 20 years before those movies you're talking about, Pixel. So let's just talk about anything that stands out in the film. Anything come to mind you guys scene-wise want to mention?
I actually really do enjoy the story, though. In how it ends, we're following this character. He's not a good guy, and his friends aren't good guys. And ultimately, the rest of them have to pay for that. And
yes, good
our
point.
main character, Danny, he learns his lesson. I think that's supposed to be their point at the end. He knows what he did is wrong. He needs to fix his life, and he admits to the girl that he's been dating all along, even though he tried to kind of seduce the other one, that he's in love with her at the end. And it's a typical Hollywood romance. At the end, it's all going to be okay. Maybe not today, maybe not. No, that's a different movie. But ultimately, I enjoy the story as we're following it, how this brother pops right up, and he's handling the crew one at a time, and it's closing in on Danny, and he has to face it to the end. And ultimately, he does get to survive and get the happy ending, and you feel a little bad for the others, but they didn't have anything. We didn't go with them, and we didn't see a potential future for them. Danny did. If he gave that up, there was a woman there waiting for him that he would love and have a normal life with. And I like that.
As far as the love interest, I mean, what I couldn't really tell early on was he just playing her or stringing her along? Because it seemed like he, it was a classical situation of, hey, I told you where the boundaries are. You're creeping up on them. I'm got to push you back here a little bit too. What do we think he was being sincere at the end when he gets back with her, or do we just think that's a part of who he is, cold and calculating?
You talking about Danny being?
Yeah, just how he is with the women.
Well, I say he knew what he was getting into, but towards the end, like I said, he gets duped a little bit by the captain. So he's clever to a point, but yeah. So he's calm, collected, but I mean, when he's out there playing that game towards the end, or he plays craps, and then he builds a small stake to more than $10,000. He tells her, "Hey, take this envelope, and something happens to me, just mail it to this person, yeah. Basically, yeah. Basically, he basically tells her that that Sid knows. Sid, who's the brother of the original guy that they get cheated out of the $5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was coming to kill him, and it's like, take this money, it's like, something happens, and he just tells her like this, to leave, get out of here, and like I said, he's the brains of the whole operation. Even from the very beginning, after they cheat the guy on the money, you can tell that he's the alpha male in this movie towards even towards the end. So to say, I mean, yes, now the cop using him, I'm sure he probably kind of figured they were, but you're not really let in on that, towards the end, it's, and like I said, like it's Danny, Charlton Heston's character, is he's the alpha male in this whole movie. He is even towards the end when the guy's fighting against him, he holds his own. He does get knocked out, but then the police do save him. But I'm sure he was probably counting on it too. But like I said, I'd still say he's a rather smart guy. I mean, look at the other characters in here. You had Barney in here, and it's so weird seeing the word the name Barney because everybody associates with the dinosaur, and
Right.
Barney. That would have definitely changed the movie.
Yeah.
Well, that's Ed Begley Sr. We all may know Ed Begley Jr., but I think you're bringing up a good point there because for me, like I say, this is just right before Dragnet got on and was really huge too. I thought that for what we were talking about, some of the side characters were pretty good. Like we saw a Harry Morgan with hair. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool too. But then you see Jack Webb, and I thought Jack Webb kind of started to stand out to me a little bit because you could see him as Augie being a little more. He would be like the loose cannon that he'd have to almost put down or put in his place or whatever, where the other guy was just a little bit more like, oh, okay, I'll do whatever you say, Danny. But I thought Jack Webb did well in here too. So I thought there were some good supporting roles in here that kind of helped. It could have been a lot weaker is what I'm saying. But I think some of them helped elevate Heston too and showed him in the way you described.
No, I absolutely agree. I think the cast for who they are was great. I also really did thinking about Sydney, who is the brother with some mental issues. He is definitely they set him up as a imposing figure. Like you can see him, but not get his full face until the end, and you just see his hand, the ring as it comes through the curtains, and I think it's good suspense. Yes, suspense.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to it with this film. If you watch it, we won't give away too many spoilers. But again, Charlton Heston's initial performance, it's one of those films that you look at and you go, yeah, okay, that's him. You get it. And to your point, RDV mentioned his mannerisms. There's certain things that you just can always recognize by people with their body language. And Heston has been in so many things and would be so many great things after this. And a few things we've covered here on the Xtreme Movie Show. And be sure to check those out. We're definitely going to be covering a lot more of them. You described it. He's the alpha. He comes across that way. He's a leading man, which those are not easy to find and even harder to manufacture. And Heston being one of the last ones made in the studio system, I'd probably say Kurt Russell would probably be the last one, thanks to Walt Disney. Yeah. But Heston, in my mind, this is a very solid performance. And if you watch this, you go, well, I don't know if I like this film, but I want to see what this guy's going to star in next.
I want to point out the guy who played Sidney Wynette at the end. He's 6'5". That's why he's and shows you how tall Charlton Heston is. And this Mike Mazurki is the guy who played him. He was he's always played the brainless athletes, the tough guys, thugs, and gangsters, and his roles include Split Face in the Dick Tracy 1945 film.
Tracy.
Sorry. I know. I'm just saying that's where he's known from. But I'm saying he's a Ukrainian American actor, or was, because he's sadly passed away. Yeah. But I thought it was kind of interesting. I was thinking about it just dawned on me Charlton Heston's pretty freaking tall. So I was looking up that guy. I was like, who's this guy? He was because nowadays they make people look taller than they normally are.
Oh yeah,
the camera tricks and stuff. But no, that actually got a guy who actually was that tall, too. And plus, it was cool seeing Harry Morgan in a role other than MASH.
Right. And the thing I'll say this about Heston as we close up here is that when you're classically trained and you're tall like him, obviously some people may think that disqualifies you from certain roles, but a lot of tall people don't. They're hunched over. They don't project tall. They don't project their height. He has good posture. He's not in a rush. He's not coming across as a goof. In our James Bond review, we just got done recording and releasing today. Before this, actually, Diamonds Are Forever, and it's the last James Bond movie that has, excuse me, Sean Connery in it. And Connery's aged, but Connery always had this very vibrant presence, physically walking, where he wasn't lurching forward. And Heston was a very active person. Sean Connery was in his own way too. He was a weightlifter, and he tried doing bodybuilding competitions and stuff. You can see it with his physique, but you can see it in the way he carries himself. And I think somehow that animal magnetism physically that people have gets really not used a lot. And I think Heston's just, wow, when you're 6'4" and you got to pull in somebody 6'5", like you're saying from an old Tracy flick, Jesus. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to make your star look good. And Heston comes out looking aces in this one. I think it's pretty solid too. Final thoughts, guys?
Final thoughts is that he's rich and he now has a girl at the end.
No, I'm going to have to agree with that. Not to cut in, but to throw mine in. Though he did do something that was bad, he is not. I don't personally blame him for the man just offing himself at the end there. Yes, he did gamble with money he shouldn't have, but it's not Danny's complete fault that he did that. It's his fault for putting him in that situation, though. But at the end, as he's being tormented for this entire span of time, it's definitely worth checking out to see it for the end. I would recommend it for anybody that's a fan of classic film noir. This is a movie for you.
Yeah, not too bad. It's decent.
Get your
It's
damn dirty
solid.
paws off me.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dark City 1950 starring Charlton Heston too. I'd like to thank Professor Pixel and RDV for showing up tonight and reviewing this. Charlton Heston, one of the most iconic actors of all time. This is where it all starts. Check it out. Let us know what you'd like us to review as well too, as we put some stuff up on the Xtreme Movie Show community tab. Be looking for that here shortly. For everybody involved here at the Xtreme Movie Show, have a good night, and as always, stay extreme.